Welcome to the Y Connect podcast. As the heartbeat of the community, the Y is a connector where people of all ages and walks of life come together to elevate their health, wellness, education, and essential life skills. Hear the stories of impact and join the authentic conversations where together we'll discover the journeys and pathways people take to connect through the Y. Now your hosts, Zarina, Robert, and Allison.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
That was my version of singing, Robert, okay? That's as good as it gets.
That's as good as it gets.
We are due for that, Robert. I think it's been a good year and a half since you sang on this podcast, since that first episode. So would it happen today?
The pressure.
Yes, Robert, it can.
Pressure.
Yes,
The
it
pressure.
can. What?
For our listeners that don't know, Robert sang when he was a Morehouse man. He was part of their ensemble that would travel around the country, correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
you got some pipes
That was
on you.
so many years ago.
Oh, but you still have it.
It's funny, the more we do the podcast, especially staff, when they put a face to a name, now people are telling me that I have a radio voice.
You do.
Yes,
And
you do.
I guess I missed my calling. I don't know.
And you're
never too
living
late.
it out through the Y Connect podcast right here, right now. I love
Hey,
it.
it works.
Well, let me expound on that little radio voice I have and take the honor of introducing our guest today in our episode. We are honored to have us today, Jeff Beckham, board chair of the YMCA of Metro Atlanta, who has dedicated years of service and leadership to the YMCA. Under his guidance, the Y has achieved significant milestones and strengthened its impact in our community. And we are equally excited to welcome Clark Dean, the Y's current vice chair of the board. Clark will take on the role of board chair in a few months, and he brings a wealth of experience to this role. Thank you both for being here. We look forward to reflecting on Jeff's tenure and looking ahead to Clark's leadership. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I do have the honor of asking the first question. This question goes to both of you. And it's kind of a question that's going to ask for you to kind of reflect on your respective board journeys. When did you join the YMCA of Metro Atlanta Board of Directors, and how did you get connected to join the board?
So I've been a member of the board for about 8 years now. And I was connected through, at the time, a board member, as I was looking for ways to get involved in the community. And I have a couple of passions, one of which is childhood education. And thought the Y board would be a great fit. I met with Ed Munster, the previous CEO, and the board chair at the time was Scott Taylor. And we had lunch, and we had a connection there and came on board, and immediately joined the Finance and Audit Committee, which then after a couple of years became the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee before becoming vice chair and now chair. So I've seen the Y from a number of different angles in leadership positions on the board, but it's been a fantastic 8 years.
Yeah, and my story is a similar story in the sense that I think friends enjoy and invite friends to join the family of the Y, and that was certainly my story. I'd actually joined the Y shortly after moving to Atlanta almost 20 years ago, and then a little over 10 years ago, I think 11 years ago, my good friend Charlie Yates, who's a great friend through Rotary Club of Atlanta and a lot of other organizations, called me up and he said, "Clark, it's time." Time for what? Because it's time you join the board of the Y. Like, all right, yes, sir. Like, sign me up. Like, that's what we're doing. And it just has been the most extraordinary experience. I had, at the time, I'd just been through Leadership Atlanta in the class of 2012. And one of the key things we studied was the impact of early childhood education on brain development. And so it was something that, with a bit of a science background, I've always been fascinated by brain development, the importance of that in creating, healthy and well-functioning human beings, and understanding that the YMCA played this extraordinary role as being the largest provider of early childhood education in the state of Georgia. Really opened my eyes to see the Y beyond my own personal experience of the Y up to that point, which had been working out with the 5:30 a.m. crowd, which was awesome. And my wife playing tennis and doing all that stuff at the Sanders Buckhead Y. So, I got to say, it's been extraordinary. I've been able to be involved in a lot of different committees. I got a chance to work with Lauren when she was leading development for the organization, and got involved with some of those campaigns, which was really fun. My background is real estate, and so I got a chance to chair that committee of the board, and we've got a lot of property around Atlanta, and so there's a lot of opportunities in how we activate and coalesce around community in the markets we serve, and then been on the executive committee for a long time. When I got a call from Jeff saying, "Hey, would you think about being my vice chair?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I could follow I'll follow Jeff anywhere. The only problem is then having to follow Jeff into the chairmanship. we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I promise we won't go too far. So we're excited about the future.
Excellent.
Thank you for sharing that. I have to put in a big plug for Jeff, because when I joined the Y in 2019, and it was just prior to the pandemic, and as we got into the pandemic, Jeff, you were vice chair, or you were chair of the finance committee at that time. You really got a very large window into how we were doing during the pandemic and some of the things that we needed to do differently. And your leadership, along with Kelly Barrett and Kevin Greiner, my goodness, the amount of time and effort and hours that you put into it, I have to applaud you for that. So thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, that was a challenging experience. I always joke with Lauren that during the summer of 2020, I worked for the Y and volunteered at my job. But it was a time where, it was needed. I mean, the Y hit some, all of us hit challenges in the pandemic. The Y hit some challenges that were, and then some, given the large dependence on membership revenues and having to close all of the branches, and the social distancing and the extra costs to try to keep people safe. One thing that I'm immensely proud of is how quickly the Y pivoted to still serve the community. Even though the branches weren't open, it was immediate. Well, what can we still do? Well, we still have parking lots that we can now give food. We can actually open up some of these centers to provide childcare for those first responders, with people on the front line, the medical professionals who, didn't have a choice to work from home. But they still had children and needed childcare, and the Y was integral to provide that service. So, I mean, it was, absolutely amazing job, Allison, Lauren, the whole team, for how quickly we pivoted and still were able to fulfill the mission, giving overwhelming odds and challenging circumstances financially. But we made it through it, and coming out on the back, the Y is arguably a stronger organization. Everything that adversity makes you a little stronger, and the Y went through it, and truly believe we're a better, stronger organization coming out of it.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. So for our listeners who maybe don't understand what our board members do, could you both explain kind of the purpose behind the board? And then the second part to my question is, how has serving on the board impacted you personally? You've both alluded to that a little bit, and professionally.
So I'll take the boring part, which is what does the board do? So the board provides strategic direction for the staff to execute, and oversees the CEO of the organization in its kind of barest form. So we really work together and come up with how does one put it? We're not choosing the color of the shower curtains in the locker rooms. That is not the board's job. It's where should the Y be in 5 years? Where should the Y be in 10 years? and what does it look like to get from here to there? That's really what the board is focused on, and then holding the staff accountable to achieve the plan, execute the plan that the board has laid out.
Okay.
Thank you for explaining that.
And I think it is really important for an organization. I mean, a lot of people, your experience with the Y is often, whatever Y you go to. And that's awesome. And we want that because, that we are, an incredibly local organization. But the Metropolitan, Atlanta YMCA is actually a really big organization, and it's a rather complex one. And so it's really important that we have, and we're very blessed to have, just a great group of leaders to play that fiduciary role, of really helping lead, as Jeff mentioned, the organization, making sure that we're doing all the right things to protect the interests of the organization, make sure that it's sustainable, that we hand this jewel off to the next generation, so that the YMCA, this is a 165-year old organization, the oldest nonprofit organization in Atlanta. We've got quite a legacy, and certainly want to be able to pass that on for the next 165 years. And I'll mention the other thing that I think is important that some of the leaders may not be aware, but I think it's an opportunity for engagement. And that is, while we have the Metropolitan, Atlanta YMCA board that Jeff chairs, we also have local advisory boards in the different YMCAs. And those are not fiduciary. So those are community engagement and advisory organizations. And we encourage people that if you're passionate about your why and you want to explore new ways the YMCA in your neighborhood can engage with your friends and neighbors and your kids and your grandparents and all those things, get involved in that organization. It's a great way to really be a part of the family of the Y, to build some phenomenal relationships and also develop great leadership skills that we've seen folks progress, from some of those advisory capacities or even our junior boards, then on up to the Metro Atlanta board. And it's really fun to see these generations of people being involved in this organization and leading it forward.
I'm really glad you brought up the community engagement board piece. One of my colleagues who's next door to me, Kristen McEwen, our chief experience officer, gave me some great advice when I got here. And she said, the first couple of months, I really think it would be a great idea if you went to all of our community engagement board meetings and just be a fly on the wall, just listen. And it was so wonderful because you really get the flavor of like what you're saying, Clark, around each community is a little different. And each Y is really a reflection of the community they're serving. And I came away with such a deeper understanding, and I felt a lot more equipped to help do the job that we do at the Y. So thank you for sharing that.
Wow. And so, Jeff, as you look back over the past 2 years as chair, what are some of the most significant accomplishments and milestones you've experienced?
I would probably say the biggest is the YMCA partnership, Jersey Pack's partnership with the Atlanta Hawks. I think that was a truly seminal moment when we were able to unveil that. And it, the exposure that it brings to the YMCA is something that the organization hasn't experienced. And it came together very, very fast. There was a lot of work done in a very short period of time to get the board comfortable or the organization comfortable with the undertaking, what it would mean, from a financial operational perspective, and how can we take advantage of it? I think it's going to be a hugely impactful partnership for the Y going forward. So I'm excited. It's probably the number one thing in my tenure. And the other thing is we finally surpassed fully paid membership units prior, to 2019. So getting the Y back to pre-COVID numbers in terms of paid membership units, I think that's other big milestones. Kind of you feel like you made it through, we're back. And so that's a big one.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Which is why you never want to have to follow Jeff. We're going to do like a partnership with I don't know, the Atlanta Hawks, right? But it's extraordinary. And the story of that, and I really, again, commend Jeff on the leadership to pull something like that together as quickly as it had to be, was also itself a bit of a why moment. Andrew Salzman, who's been a longtime board member of the YMCA, was chief revenue officer for the Atlanta Hawks. And through some volunteering that he himself was doing, speaking at a national Y event, really was captured with the spirit of the organization and the history and connection to basketball and the impact that the YMCAs have had on so many of the players who are playing in the NBA. And you really got to hand it off to him and Kristen and Lauren and some of the folks that really initially came up with the idea. But what was great about it is because we do have a very close board. I mean, we don't just get together every couple of months and sign off on prescripted agendas. We build trusted relationships with each other, and we know each other. And so, when Andrew said, "Hey, I got a big idea," it landed differently than if it had just been out of the blue from somebody. I mean, this is a close friend of the organization. And someone that we had personal trust and relationships with. And, on our board, we had a couple of other folks that had, deep experience in sports and sports marketing. And so they were able to very quickly come with their own professional capabilities and experience to evaluate how we were putting together this arrangement and what a benefit it could be really for both of these signature Atlanta organizations to come together at this moment in time to do something that no other team had done with a patch partnership. And that is promote community, to be community. And I think that it's really made the past partnership that the YMCA has with the Atlanta Hawks, it really the pride of the NBA. And a lot of folks, when they'll swap jerseys after games, and the players tell us that their jerseys are some of the most sought after because so many people that play for all these other teams who don't have a patch partnership learn how to play basketball in the YMCA. So to them, when they look at the Atlanta jersey, they see a little part of themselves right here. And I think that that's really special. And hopefully it will be really inspiring for years to come. So again, kudos to Jeff on that just extraordinary effort.
Absolutely.
Well, you really explained that so well, Clark. I invite our listeners to go back to an episode we did in December, actually with Andrew Salzman and Lauren Kuntz, our CEO, and Kristen McEwen. So they really take us through that whole story of how it came to be. And since then, since we inked that deal, Lauren and Kristen have received a flood of calls from our Ys from across the country asking, how did you do that? How can we do that? And it's starting to grow, in terms of the conversations that are happening between professional sports teams and Ys in different cities around the country. And then we're even talking to the Hawks around how can the Y deepen the Hawks' presence globally, because the Y is all over the world. So exciting times for sure. And it's something that's just going to continue to grow, I think.
Yeah.
And Clark, you spoke of the pride that you feel. I had an opportunity of taking my daughter to a game, and when the lights came on and the YMCA banners and everything was on the screen, and my daughter happens to work at the East Lake YMCA in the membership department, so both of us are just sitting there full of pride, just wow, this is, being in an organization where the work that you do on a daily basis, but understanding that is bigger than you. It's bigger than the work that you do. And it's touching so many people, even if it's just a small taste of what we do. It was amazing.
Oh, it's
amazing.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I think that sense of belonging that it really extends when, there are any given night, right, thousands and thousands of people in State Farm Arena watching the Hawks play basketball, or in any other arena that they play in, because it travels with them everywhere they go. When they see those patches, they see part of themselves, and it brings back a wash of memories of how this organization has shaped their own childhood, has shaped the childhoods of their kids, opportunities for their parents and grandparents, and it really is beautiful to see how that can really bring community together.
Absolutely,
is what Y does.
Yeah.
And I love the global impact. I mean, you forget not just in the arenas, but on television. I remember I was watching a NBA Summer League game, the Atlanta Hawks, and then I immediately noticed, oh, the patch, it's on the Summer League jerseys too. And so, the Y's out in Vegas, and the Hawks played in, I think it was Abu Dhabi, for exhibition. So the Y patch is out there in Abu Dhabi. They played in Mexico. So they're seeing the Y patch there in Mexico. So, I mean, it's, truly a global, it's the NBA's a global, business, and the Y is a global business, and we're going where they go.
Well, and I think that's one of the things too, Jeff, that you did that you're always really modest about, but just the trip to Africa and some of the really cool things that the Metro Atlanta YMCA is doing in partnership overseas is extraordinary. A lot of people that just work out in the mornings don't realize that great program that you help really unfold here at the Y.
That's huge.
I think it definitely speaks to how many people feel the YMCA was just a swimming gym. But then when they see the patchwork and the patch partnership, and they see the work that we do around the world, they realize that we are, again, much bigger than what the eyes see. Jeff, now I have to ask you a question on the other side of the spectrum. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced during your tenure, and how did the board navigate them?
Well, I think, as Austin alluded, when I was chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, COVID hit, and that summer, we had debt on the organization that we had to make payments on. Membership revenues were dwindling. I was working with the then CFO at the time, the board chair, Lauren. We were tracking cash on a weekly basis. Literally, okay, this week we've got this much cash. Next week, we've got payroll this week. It's going to dip. That was an intense period. But through numerous calls, a lot of dedication, from all the volunteers, we were able to put together a plan, use our relationships in the community to make calls to certain people in the banking world, in the philanthropic world. And we got a lot of great help from our partners, our donors. There's no way the Y could have made it through without the Woodruff Foundation, with our other philanthropic partners. It was absolutely, without a doubt, got the Y through that period. Just that little bit of extra to get us out around to the other side. So those efforts, where there were some moments where we had to make some very tough decisions just to keep the organization going, but we made it through.
Yeah.
Clark, so let's build on what Jeff's talking about. So I would love to hear you reflect, and I'm sure you've been thinking about how you plan to build, and you've mentioned it already, following in his footsteps, but bringing your own unique perspective and goals to the table. Would love to hear that.
Oh, of course. As I said before, a tough act to follow, but a great one to build upon, right? I mean, and I think that's been one of the exciting things is certainly over the past 2 years under Jeff, before him under Kevin Greiner, we have built this unbelievable foundation where the YMCA is really poised to make the maximal impact on our community, and in a pretty broad community. I mean, it's a large organization that covers lots of different neighborhoods and communities around Metro Atlanta and North Georgia. I mean, you really it's hard to sometimes comprehend the scale of the organization, but I think the opportunity is, what communities are we not serving as well as we should? How can we serve the community more effectively? And it doesn't necessarily mean, although it may mean, new full service YMCA facilities. But we've been pretty interested in exploring partnerships. We have a great YMCA down at Morehouse School of Medicine that was developed as part of their campus expansion. The YMCA manages that space and brings our community into their community to activate that. It's what the YMCA does really well. And Morehouse was like, we do a great job of of training doctors for the future. But, you guys do a great job of building community for our doctors around health and wellness and those sorts of things. So I think there's a lot of opportunities like that. Moving into next year, we just hit at a perfect time for our next strategic plan. And so one of the things I'm really excited about is to really reflect back on the extraordinary successes and the obstacles overcome. COVID was such a big deal, but I've always been a big fan of Nassim Taleb's concept of anti-fragility. Not to get overly nerdy on the call, but this idea of anti-fragility is if you think about a spectrum of fragility, on one side, if something's fragile, it's marked fragile and you shake it and it breaks. And people say, well, what's the opposite of fragile? A lot of people say, well, it's robust. Well, but robust, you shake it and it stays the same. Like that's not really the opposite of fragile. The opposite of fragile is really anti-fragile. That's where you shake it and it becomes stronger. And I think that's what we've seen is the YMCA is an anti-fragile organization. During COVID, we got shaken. But by being shaken, it helped us understand strengths that we didn't even know we had. Relationships that we knew we had, but didn't realize how important they were. And it allowed new partnerships to come to the Y that ultimately will form the foundation of an even more effective and comprehensive YMCA and what we can do to build community across the state. So to me, I'm excited about going through this journey of a strategic plan. Who gets excited about strategic plans? The management consulting real estate guy. I love it. But it's going to be great. It's going to be like, so, the listeners get ready for some focus groups and, some surveying of community and like understanding how we can serve you better. And I think there's going to be an opportunity too, now that we have entered a phase of recovery. As Jeff mentioned, we've now gotten back to our pre-pandemic levels of membership. And to point out for listeners too, because some people don't really realize how the YMCA works, we're a membership organization, and the revenue that we draw in is really from memberships and programs. And that's how we're able to do the great work that we do across the entire community is on the number of members that come and that are paying members. So that allows us to do a lot of scholarship programs, allows us to do a lot of work in areas where people may not be able to afford programs at the YMCA, but we can still deliver them because others are paying their membership. So one of the great things about the Atlanta Hawk partnership was its ability to really help us grow our membership. And so as we think about how we grow our membership, I think that's going to be an integral part of the strategic plan to say, how can we make the YMCA more accessible to more people and look at new opportunities and new economic models to actually make that possible as we continue to grow. At the same time, I'm excited about bringing back some legendary former events. Just this morning, we had a meeting to bring back the YCEO golf tournament. The YCEO golf tournament, the very first YMCA golf tournament down at East Lake was held on September 10th, 2001. So let that date sink in for a minute, right? So everybody left the event on this high of this was the most extraordinary moment where we had CEOs from all the most important organizations and companies and philanthropies in Atlanta that all came together and for a day, played golf down at East Lake, had this beautiful dinner, raised a lot of money for the YMCA. And they went home so content and went to bed. And when they woke up the next morning, they saw this disaster unfolding in our country that still sends chills down all of our spines. So it has a great long history. And I'm excited about being able to bring it back, especially on a brand new course. East Lake has redesigned itself. So we see it on the Tour Championship. Imagine yourself maybe being out there at the YCEO of the future and getting to experience that. So we're excited about some of those things. Also expanding some of the other partnerships. Everybody's familiar with the Hawks partnership because it is so extraordinary. The work we do with Children's Hospital is amazing. The things that we're doing with the Atlanta Community Food Bank, with even organizations like the Children's Museum and Fern Bank in the future, things that we're exploring with a lot of these different organizations that we can really partner to bring the best ideas and resources around young people and really across the whole age spectrum, really to bring these services to bear, and along the way, really knitting the community together. So, I am hopeful that as we lean into the strategic plan, we'll come up with some wonderful ideas and better ideas on how we can engage community, not just within the walls of our facilities, which, again, there's going to be a whole assessment on that. Like, are we in the right places? Where can we expand? Where should new YMCAs be? And then activating that plan so that people, it's not just within the walls of the YMCA, but it's also outside the YMCA walls, that people sense the richness of the organization and how we can touch lives.
Wonderful. It was a great overview, Clark.
Yes.
And just in a few months. It's so fabulous. I also want to just dovetail what you said about getting outside the walls of the Y. Through this existing strategic plan, that's been a big focus of ours. And our Ys have really embraced that wholeheartedly. They're so creative around, like, we're partnering with the Mayor's Office of International and Immigrant Affairs. On a bi-monthly basis, our Ys are going out to their community resource fairs and bringing Y services out into the community. That's just one example. So continuing to build on that work that we've done is going to be exciting.
Well, it is exciting. And a lot of, I should have mentioned too, I think it's one of the coolest programs we do with the At Promise Centers. One of the core At Promise Centers, we got to celebrate a couple of years ago now, the ribbon, cutting down at the Young Family YMCA, and, the impact that facility, physical facility, but the coalescing all of these services in one place wrapped around young people who are normally viewed as at risk, kids who've been through the juvenile justice system, that the YMCA and others in our community say, no, these kids are at promise. Like, what is the promise? How do we unlock that promise? And so we've got that organization. Something else outside the walls that is near and dear to my heart is the stuff we do at Overtime. We talk about the Hawks and professional basketball. We also have, through professional high school basketball, depending on how you want to look at it, the Overtime Elite, invites folks from the YMCA to come, and they have a great partnership with the players, getting a chance to volunteer and do things at the Y, and for Y members to actually come and do stuff within Overtime. And it's a great example of how Overtime wanted their young people to build the muscle memory, not only of their jump shot, but also of community service. And what better organization than the YMCA to get these young high schoolers who someday hope to be NBA athletes themselves, and many of them already are from the early days of the program. That's really exciting. So that then when they do get there, they're still connected to organizations like the Y, where they can really make an impact in community.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Well, so Clark, also with the great plans and goals that you have set for the Y, what do you anticipate will be the key challenges and opportunities for the YMCA in the coming years? And how do you plan to address those?
Yeah. Well, the biggest challenge is always there's so much to do, right? And so I think the biggest challenge is also the biggest opportunity. And that is, how can we continue drawing the most extraordinary leaders to this organization from across communities? I know there are phenomenal leaders in Atlanta right now that we don't even know about. And I think that's what we're hoping. Those folks are going to bubble up and become part of the Y and contribute to the Y in their communities and to our Metro Atlanta Y. Because I think the challenge is always identifying, there's always the usual suspects. The challenge is, how do you find those leaders in community that aren't necessarily the usual suspects, but the ones that have strong, trust and accountability and vision for their communities that can help join the Y effort to really help them fulfill the potential of their communities. And so I think a lot of it's going to be a talent game as we continue looking at our big board, the Metro Atlanta YMCA board, but also those local advisory boards within the different branches. And then I'm really excited about really leaning into an effort to get young professionals and young executives involved in some type of capacity, and whether it's like a junior committee type situation where they can get involved and build relationships and hopefully grow in their interest in the Y, their understanding of how this organization works, how it drives value, so that they themselves can make a contribution today, but also be in a position to make a contribution sitting in the chairs that Jeff and I get to sit in the future, and understand that we're in this for the long game. And so we got to really be thinking about how do we continue to extend the roots of this organization into community so that we continue to be an inextricable part of the value proposition of this community and how people come together to enrich each other's lives. Some of the other challenges, of course, none of this stuff happens without capital, right? So there's always that, and it's real. I mean, you can have all the dreams in the world if you don't have others that can share that dream and find ways to make it financially possible, then it just doesn't happen. And again, we've been very blessed through the years with a lot of great partners and a lot of great visionaries. And can create execution people that can actually make these things happen. So I'm excited about just leaning into that. I think, who knows what the problems will be. Not to be a whole Nassim Taleb, book report on this podcast, but, Black Swan is also one of his books, and it talks about the big things that you don't know. And I think when I think about the risks that we're facing, just like the risks that Kevin Greiner faced during his term with COVID, there are undoubtedly things that are going to happen within the next 2.5 years that there are going to be challenges we have no idea about. And so to me, the way you prepare for those things is first knowing that the unknown is possible, right? And how do you prepare the trust, relationships, and network of people who care about something so that you are ready to react, as we did during COVID, quickly and effectively to mobilize the right resources needed to really protect our community and to make sure that we continue to be a success.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And
Great
did I
insight.
see, Clark, really fast that you're also going to be the rising chair of the Shepherd Center board? Is that right? Are you going to be doing both at the same time? What?
Well,
That's
hopefully
amazing.
not at the same time. We don't know.
Okay.
So Alana Shepherd is our fearless chairman, and hopefully she will do that for many more years.
Okay.
But I'm a chair-elect.
Chair-elect. Okay, I saw that in your bio, and I was like, huh, okay, all right.
Yeah. So I've been involved in the hospital for many years, a little longer actually than the YMCA, and obviously an extraordinary organization that changes lives. And I'm excited about seeing, even more partnerships that we can form between the YMCA and Shepherd Center. Two really incredible organizations that have rich histories in Atlanta and really serve people, across an incredible spectrum. What Shepherd Center does for the disabled community in particular is amazing. And if you ever, run the Peachtree Road Race and you walk, run by and you see everybody cheering from the on Cardiac Hill and everybody's cheering there in front of Shepherd Center, I'm amazed how many stories, and it's not just one or two, of patients at Shepherd that literally sat on that hill in a wheelchair, not knowing they would ever necessarily walk again, watching everybody run by. And then years later, themselves running by, right? I mean, that's the promise. And some of them are rolling by. That's also cool. We got amazing para athletes, and the contribution that Alana Shepherd has made to the whole Paralympic movement is amazing. So, I think that the beautiful thing about Atlanta and our organizations is that in Atlanta, you can impact the world. And there's an organization that says Atlanta influences everything. It's a little cocky, but we do kind of influence a lot of things, and I think it's an inclusive arrogance, and you want to be part of it, and I think we're a really welcoming community. When people move here, they can find great organizations like the YMCA and the Shepherd Center to get involved with to really make a difference.
Didn't we hear at Rotary this week, Jeff and Clark? I was a guest of Lauren's, that Alana Shepherd goes to work every single day. Is that right?
Yes. I will tell you that,
and she's 9. What is her age now?
Yeah, she's approaching 95, which is pretty
amazing.
awesome.
It's amazing.
But if you look at the incredible progress on our Marcus building, this new Marcus Center for Advanced Rehabilitation that we're building on our campus, there have been many people that have suggested, beyond having fabulous contractors, which we do have, and great leadership teams, certainly. But a lot of people say the reason that building has gone up so fast is Alana's office faces that site, and she sits there with binoculars. Like, I'm not nobody wants to let Alana down. Like, this thing is going up. It is like way under budget, and it's way ahead of schedule. It's amazing, but it's a lot due to her. I mean, the culture that she and James, of course, who was the chair before her, and her son, whose story was actually the formation of Shepherd Center. the impact that they've had in just creating a vision-led organization where everybody from the person who's mopping the floors in the rooms and making the turns to the folks who are literally in the C-suite, everybody is connected to the vision and everybody realizes the impact that they have on others. And I think it's a very similar culture that we have at the YMCA. The folks that are wiping out the equipment, they're doing the same thing as like the folks that are teaching these young people how to read. The folks, there's so many different ways to get involved in the Y and build community. And like I said, I think we're just incredibly blessed as a community to have these kind of organizations where we can really plug in and do that.
Absolutely.
Clark, the parallels are amazing. My fiance works for the Shepherd Center,
in
the privacy IT with a balance between IT, privacy, and compliance. So I look forward to having conversations with you. These kind of talk about the continued parallels between both agencies.
No doubt. Well, I look forward to getting to meet her. We just formed a board committee around technology that I'm on. So I'll look forward to
you'll be meeting her.
Getting to know her. Well, we got a lot of talent in that building. It's so fun. I always meet somebody new. I'm like, oh my gosh, like how do we get this talent? You know, we've been very blessed. It's amazing.
You know, this conversation has been a blessing. Again, just looking at the parallels, and you definitely touched on what I'm about to ask you, and this question goes to both of you. But if you can expound on how the community and stakeholders can best support the YMCA's mission and contribute to the success moving forward.
I mean, one of the biggest things is being a mouthpiece. Every single year I've been with the Y, I feel like the number one challenge is how do you tell everyone in the community everything the Y does? Because as Clark alluded to earlier, most people's interaction might be as a swim and gym. And the Y is 1,000 times more than that. Everything we do from Head Start up through the teens and the camps and day camp and resident camp and the food. I mean, it goes on. And it's hard to get all of that out to the community to let them know. But once people know and they hear the story, you can't help but be engaged and want to do more. So that's our biggest challenge. And what we need most from the community, our stakeholders is, support, monetary support is always helpful and volunteer, but spread the word, get the message out. And bring in the community by letting the community know everything that the Y has. Like there is something for everyone at the Y, at our branches, not even just in our branches, but even outside of our branches. So I think that's a year in, year out. That's the number one thing.
Well said. And I think that the breadth of things and resources that we bring to bear for the community at the Y does make that a challenge, right? Because there's so many things going on. So it's hard to think about all of them. I mean, you're talking about partnerships before. Some of the coolest ones, the Alliance Theater and their program, where they actually, they're the one of the great arts groups, obviously in Atlanta, and coming and doing programs with our young people at our early learning centers is incredible. The Fox Theater brings their Fox in the Box to this. So there's, I think when people want to get involved in the YMCA, there's lots of different ways they can get involved, and don't feel like it just has to be, throwing on a white t-shirt and working in one of the facilities. There's a lot of, there's a lot of volunteer opportunities. We've talked about the advisory boards and other things, ways people can get involved. This junior board or committee that we're putting together and really trying to lean into. I think it'd be really exciting. And I guess that this sounds almost banal, but I think it's so fundamental to the value of the YMCA is I encourage people just to be there. Like, go to the YMCA, participate in those programs. Don't just, put it on your credit card and forget about it every month. You just pay your due. I mean, do that, right? But also go and build relationships and start up that conversation with the person that, that's, I mean, obviously if they're in the middle of a lift, don't bug them, but start those conversations. I mean, the friendships that form in the Y, whether they're on the tennis courts, in the weight room, in some of these classes, that's the richness of community, and that's the magic. And I just thinking again, just crazy small world stuff the other day. And I've known him now for a long time, but a friend, Stuart Fearman, who is, we work out again, fairly early morning club, not quite as early as I used to. But it turns out he's from my hometown, Mountain Brook, Alabama, which is also fun. He's one of the founders of Fifth Group Restaurants. And then, they were talking about getting involved in Shepherd Center. Well, that started there. He's like, oh, I'm touring Shepherd next week. Oh, that's great. And then I'm also involved with this nonprofit that is doing a nonprofit restaurant in Atlanta called Cafe Momentum that provides internship opportunities and job training for high school kids who've been through the juvenile justice system. And he's in the restaurant business. So again, all of this started from the YMCA, like talking in the gym. Next thing you know, he's coming to a pop-up with us and learning about this incredible program. He's like, I want to hire these kids. Like this is workforce development for my business. And here it is, but it's doing so much good and offering these opportunities that otherwise wouldn't exist. And so I think coming and being a part of the Y is being in part of not just the Y, but really being part of the broader community. And the relationships you build at the Y are ones that can enrich your life in ways that you would never even have imagined. And that's why. So I really encourage people to just come, be present, meet other members, get involved, because that's really how you have not only you get a lot out of the Y, but that's how you contribute into the Y, which is always how you get the most out of it. Anyway.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So we always end our episodes asking the same question. And the question is this. We'd love to hear your pathway to the Y story. So maybe you were first introduced to the Y as a young child or a teen or an adult, but would love to hear, how did you first get connected to the Y? And if it was your board story, then that's okay. Maybe share something else that you love about the Y. Why don't we start with Jeff?
So growing up in Detroit, I learned how to swim at the Southfield Y. And I have those, vivid memories of my mom driving me up there and learning how to swim. And we always went to McDonald's afterwards. So it was like every single swim lesson. And then, fast forward to being in Atlanta and having two boys, my own, both of my boys to learn how to swim at Y's here, one Decatur, one Eastlake. Both have played basketball at the Y. I have coached basketball for the younger kids at the Decatur Y. Probably one of those practices were the most stressful day of the week. 8 7-year-old boys that I had to wrangle together to coach basketball, but it was great. I've got little pictures of both of them with their basketball jerseys on with the Y patch. And going to those games and coaching the games. So, both of my boys have had great Y experiences and summer camps in addition to myself.
That's fantastic.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, similar story. I grew up in Alabama, and although we were not members of the YMCA there, I was on a swim team that swam during the summers. And so we had a lot of meets at the YMCAs, and they were always just such a friendly, welcoming place to be. The YMCA was different from a lot of the other clubs and organizations that hosted meets. And I think that had an impact on me. Then when I became a lifeguard, actually did my lifeguard certification at the YMCA. So I had to, do all the stuff that you have to do that in their pool. And it's had that connection. But really when I moved to Atlanta, it was a combination of my wife getting pulled into playing tennis with some friends there at the Sanders YMCA. And my kids, getting involved in soccer, so youth soccer, and my oldest son, his first club soccer experience was a YMCA soccer team that was actually quite a high level soccer team. I mean, he was fairly young, but he was a little old to get into it, and it really helped him develop an incredible love for the game. And he went on to play 4 years of college soccer. So I mean, here's a kid that really caught on with it. And all my kids through the years have enjoyed different programs, whether it's the, summer camps and me dragging them to the gym. Actually, one year, which is kind of a fun part of the Y story, is, as I'd mentioned, for years, I was part of that 5:30 club with, a great group of guys that would just be there every morning. And my oldest son's senior year, we had his best friend whose family had moved to Germany. ended up staying with us, living with us for a year. And his name's Lucas. And Lucas and I had a great relationship, but he loved to work out. He loved the gym. And so he asked, he's like, Clark, could I work out with you on Friday mornings? I'm like, absolutely. I was like, I do it at like 5:30 in the morning. Are you going to be up for this? And he's like, absolutely. And so it was just so fun, coming downstairs and there's Lucas waiting by the back door, 5:15, ready to go. And I was like, and so it was like this great bonding experience, getting to spend that time with this incredible, young man who, we got to spend a whole year with at home. But it was those moments of why that were just really fun. And so I think the why, again, for us, it's always been, different things as we look in the future. As I'm getting older, and I'm using the why differently, and probably using different parts of the why, and I think that's part of the fun why story as my why story continues to unfold.
Oh yeah,
you guys are great. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on today. This was such a fun conversation, and we are really, really blessed to have your leadership, Jeff. Seriously. I can't say enough how many hours you put in during the pandemic and since then. So thank you so much for your leadership. And Clark, we look forward to your tenure beginning at the start of the year. It's exciting.
Well, thank you guys. I mean, honestly, you guys make it so easy. I really we'll talk about all the challenges and all that stuff, but when you have a staff like we have at the Metro Atlanta YMCA, it's amazing. I mean, it really is. We talk about the talent game. Lauren, you guys are crushing the talent game, and it makes the whole thing work so much better. I mean, it is an absolute joy to be a part of this organization, and it's so much fun. And the friendships that we form, it's great. It's always leave these meetings with a big smiles on our face and a big, warm heart. So it's a joy. Thank you for all you guys do.
Yeah, no, thank you. I genuinely look forward to all the board meetings, just to be able to interact with the staff and board members. It's truly something that you look forward to. And so I've had a blast and look to continue, serving the Y, and excited to see Clark's tenure. And thank you for inviting us on this. This was really fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Y Podcast. To continue the conversation or to find your closest Y, please connect with us at ymcaatlanta.org and sign up for our newsletter, Healthy Together.
Yeah!